You're listening to the Femtrepreneur Show. This is episode 27. And in this episode, we're talking all about how to find the time to actually create your course. Even if you have a full-time job, even if you're busy, we're all busy. So we're going to talk about finding the time. Hey guys, it's Mariah.
And I'm Megan. And oh yeah, you're supposed to say this part.
And this week we have a sponsor.
Woo!
Woo! So we're doing this really cool thing where we are having our podcast sponsored by our very own Launch Your Signature course students. Basically, we just want to, showcase our students and show you guys everything that they've been up to because we're super proud of them. And this week's episode is brought to you by our Launch Your Signature course student, Katie Cindy. Katie Cindy is an online trainer helping parents teach their kids safety in a positive, hands-on way using games and experiences. So she's a Launch Your Signature course student. We're super proud of everything she's accomplished, and she's a really good example of a course in a super unique niche, which we really love. Her free introductory course is called 5 Neglected Safety Skills Kids Needed to Build Yesterday, and it's available now. So you can join and start building the fundamentals of your own kids' safety. Just go to www.school.bewithkids.com/free-course.
Woo! Yay for featuring some of our students. I love that.
It is really fun.
And a lot of people, so we already introduced this episode, we're going to be talking about time management, making time to create your course. And we have gotten questions about this all the time. I feel like in many different ways and from different angles. Like you said, everyone is busy and everyone struggles with this. Whether you're a full-time entrepreneur or you're just starting your business on the side, it can be difficult. So we're excited to share our best tips, how we find the time, and how we've helped other people find the time also.
Absolutely. And it's like you said, this isn't, if you feel super busy, you feel like you have a job, you have kids, you have family responsibilities, you're definitely not alone in that. You're definitely not the exception. Everyone struggles with finding the time. But the ultimate thing to remember is just that this has to be a priority for you in order for you to make the time for it. And I do think that phrasing it as in finding the time isn't really correct, because you're not really going to just stumble upon an hour here and there and be able to create your course without setting the attention that you are going to make the time to do it and deciding that it is a priority for you in your life and in your business, and that it's worth setting aside time and being disciplined about using that time in your day.
Definitely. And, we talked a little bit before we jumped on and started recording. This is not always easy. Some days are difficult, and that's okay. You have to be okay with that. You just have to do your best. And I think with the strategies and tips we're going to go through, it'll help you make more time in your day to do this if it is a priority. So one of the things that I wanted to touch on first is, for those of you with a full-time job, you can still find time to create a course. I created my first course when I had a full-time job and I had clients. So I totally understand the lack of time.
I don't know how you did it, but you did.
And it's not easy. We already kind of touched on that. I don't want to make it sound too hard, because I did it and I was happy, but you have to make the time. So for me, it was taking a full hour lunch break, which I know for me in my corporate world, that was not always something everyone did. A lot of people ate at their desk or didn't really run out for lunch, but it was okay. You were allowed to. So I would actually go do that. So maybe you have a coffee shop near your office. Can you go step out and bring your laptop and work uninterrupted for 40 minutes during lunch? Can you wake up 1 hour earlier than you currently are and work in the morning before work? Can you say no to social events? That was my easiest way to make time, was saying no to all the social events that happened and that were presented to me that I would have said yes to. So it meant no to saying happy hours after work. It meant saying no to dates with my boyfriend at the time, no to hanging out with girlfriends. I had a roommate at the time, and it was saying no to hanging out with her sometimes. So it wasn't always easy, but I knew it was worth it. And that kind of touches back to just prioritizing your time and making those temporary sacrifices for your long-term goals. Another thing is working on the weekends. Again, this isn't glamorous.
Yeah.
It's not, people, I still work on the weekends sometimes now, but when I worked full time, that was a necessity. Like, I would wake up in the morning on Saturday and pretty much work until I had plans in the evening. And it wasn't like a day to run errands and a day to relax. It was a day to pretend like all I had to do was my business.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is evenings. That was my bread and butter. I would come home from work around 5 or 5:30. I'd eat dinner and I'd go upstairs, get on my laptop, and I'd spend like 1 hour doing client work. And the rest of the time, however much time I decided I had that night, was spent on creating, whether that was a blog or a course. I stayed up a little later than I should have sometimes, but it was ultimately worth it. So for those of you with a full-time job, it's not easy, it's not glamorous. It is possible, and you can enjoy it, because I loved working on my business. So I loved those evenings and I loved those weekends, and they were fun. They just weren't fun in what my social group expected me to be doing.
I mean, it's like you said, for a lot of people, working on their business is the fun part of their day. It's not, maybe it can't be the majority of their day yet because you're at a 9 to 5, but it is something that you look forward to. It is something that you should be excited to work on when you do go home. So you can definitely capitalize on that motivation and that excitement, that passion that you have for your new business. Really harness it and use it for those late hours. And I think, like you said, it's really true. It's not easy, and it requires this sacrifice up front so that you can have something that not everyone will be able to achieve. You know what I mean? Like, people are not willing to make those sacrifices. People are not willing to make the time and to set the boundaries and to say that they're going to commit to getting something done, but you're going to reap the benefits from doing that. You know, it's the same thing as that phrase of like, you know, entrepreneurs will work for 2 years doing what no one else will so that they can live the rest of their life like no one else can. And I really think that's true. If you just bust ass for the first 2 or 3 years, you'll be in a position that like 99.9% of all the other people on the planet are not in terms of freedom and opportunities for you. So it's worth it. I think, like Megan said, it's hard, and there's no sugarcoating it, and there's no saying that there's no sacrifice, but it is so worth it, because if you can put in those long hours now, you're going to have freedom for you and your family that you just can't even imagine.
Well, it's like for me now that I have my business and it's full time and I don't have a corporate job anymore. When I look back at those hours, they were worth every moment, because I am at a point, not that I have this like crazy successful business, like on the spectrum of business success, I feel like I'm still in the beginning phase and wanting to move forward. But even where I'm at now, my salary is like more than double what it was in the corporate world.
Yeah.
And the freedom that I have now is, I mean, more valuable to me than the money. And so it's like every ounce of energy I put into getting to this point was worth it in every way. So it can happen. And I do feel like some of that, we get questions a lot from people who have a full client roster. How can they find time to create a course? Unless you're willing to cut back on clients, like those things you can do all that too. Like work on different, you know, in the evenings or on weekends. And I think everything else we're going to go through after this, it still applies to pretty much anyone. So full-time people, we have more advice for you also. But I just wanted to kick it off with addressing that right out the gate, that even if you have a full-time job, this is possible.
Yeah. No excuses, guys. You can do this. Kick in the butt. You can do it. And I think that's the first part, is just believing that you really like, oh yeah, this is going to happen. I can do this. Don't be sitting at work. And one of the things we talked about before we hopped on too is like just thinking about like if you took inventory right now today and asked yourself, how much time do you waste? Like, sorry, just going to be honest. How much time are you wasting right now? Like wasting on shit that isn't going to get you any benefit in your future. Like how, you know, do your future self a favor and think about how many things you're doing on a daily basis, watching Netflix. Like, I'm not saying that these things are bad. Inherently, they're not. It's good to relax. It's good to spend time, you know, doing just like vegging out. But how often are you doing that in place of some of the, I mean, there was like a whole 2 years where like I didn't watch movies or shows, or like I didn't have time to like read a book for fun. Like I didn't like, and it was just like a big sacrifice, but it was worth it, because now our business grows more steadily and I have a lot more work-life balance and stuff like that. But at first it was like, I just had to say like, no, I can't do that because I have something else I have to work on. So I do think it's, you know, taking inventory of how much time you are wasting and realizing that like you do have 2 hours a week to work on this.
Yeah, definitely. So related to that, one of the things that Mariah has always talked about that I love is what are you doing right now that you can stop doing? So there's a few different ways you could approach that. So maybe you're doing something right now and it needs to keep happening for your business, but maybe you don't have to be the one doing it. So can you hire a virtual assistant, or do you have a team member in place already that you could start delegating more to? So part of that assessment is also looking at what can you delegate? What can you stop doing yourself and let someone else do? And then there's also going to be some things that you just ultimately need to stop doing temporarily altogether.
Yeah.
We've had one of our students did that. He didn't have a team, or I think maybe he did have a team at the time, but he felt like he had a VA, but he felt like he couldn't create content and do his job and also create a course. So he like temporarily stopped creating blog posts to prioritize and put his time elsewhere. And he didn't see any downside of that.
Really
and it was
worked.
a great way for him to stop doing something that had a low return for that period of time.
And I think like you're saying, I mean, this especially applies to people who do have full-time jobs, because the reality is that you have more money than you do time. If you have a full-time job, you have a salary, it's worth it for you to find, cut down on some other expense and find the money to get some help, because at that point in your business, you actually have like money coming in from your job, and you have not very much time. So you are in a position to find a VA or find someone to help you and delegate to, even though it can seem scary to be like, oh, I'm going to pay someone before I've necessarily started, making a lot of money from my business. You are kind of in that position where you have more money than time. Whereas there's other people, like when I started, I had no money, but I had time. Plenty of time, lots of time, all the time. So it really depends on like what your personal situation is. Do you have more money? Do you have more time? So in terms of stopping doing something that you're currently doing that isn't helping you out, you first want to assess what you're spending time on and what is the return. So if you come home from work and you spend an hour on Pinterest because someone told you that like Pinterest is going to help you grow your business, what kind of return are you actually seeing? Like, is Pinterest making you revenue today, right now? Is it actually making sales? If someone's telling you to spend more time on social media, are you spending all the time following and liking people and posting on social media, and you're not really seeing a return because you don't even have your email list optimized yet? Or, what are you doing right now? Maybe it's blogging, maybe it's podcasting, it doesn't matter. But if you assess all the things that you are currently doing in that limited time that you have for your business, what kind of return are you seeing? And I mean like immediate. Like an immediate return is when like I send an email and I make an offer and I get sales literally within minutes. Like that is a type of return that you can measure, instead of saying like, well, I'm working on, growing my brand awareness on Facebook and getting Facebook likes. And it's like, okay, but what is the immediate return on that right now? You don't have the luxury of working on like brand awareness and like these sort of like, oh, I want to grow my audience. Like you don't have the luxury of a lot of those things when you're first starting out, because all you should be caring about is making sales because otherwise you don't have a business. So basically I want you to be really honest, write down all the things you spend time on. If you know how much time you're spending on each thing, that's great. Write that down too. And really really be honest with yourself about what the return is that you're getting for those things. And maybe there are things that you need to stop doing right now to make time to create the course. And then once the course is launched and you have revenue, then go back and like go be on social media, grow your Facebook and do whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's not like those are bad strategies. And this is where I want everyone to do what Mariah's saying, and actually this is going to be different for every person and every business. Right. If you're doing Pinterest and it is working for you right now, keep doing it. We're not saying to stop, but it's assessing if you do like 6 things on an ongoing basis, maybe can you stop doing 3 of them for like a month? And, even for me, I used to spend so much time cultivating my Instagram feed, and that is great because I get engagement and I can share content. But the past few weeks, I have like intentionally not put time into doing that because I had other stuff going on that was more important. And I have still just like, I'm gaining followers without posting. Like every Thursday, I'm just reposting a new video and like deleting the old one to promote my new video. But it's been a great season of me to test that like I can stop doing this Instagram thing for a few weeks and like and focus on something else. So for me, that was something that's a low return that I can temporarily stop doing to focus on more important stuff. And that as soon as I feel like I have the time again, I will bring that back to a regular.
And the truth is that like, if you stop blogging for 2 months, like no one really cares.
Yeah.
Like it just isn't like, I think people are like, if I stop blogging or if I stop posting on Instagram for a month, like everything will fall apart, but like it won't at all.
Yeah. There's going to be something you're doing right now that like you can cut out because there's a low return, at least right now.
I'm going to mention the sprint workshop because I recently did a workshop all about planning sprints and prioritizing your projects and your tasks. And one of the things we talked about was a criteria for actually prioritizing stuff. So if you're sitting there being like, I don't know what has the highest return for me, or I really am having a hard time prioritizing, if you watch the sprint workshop, you're going to get there's actually a workbook that goes with it that lists out like 8 criteria that you need to run your tasks through to say like, oh yeah, this is not, ticking all these boxes and it's worth it to keep doing it, or it's not worth it to keep doing it. So you can get that at thefemshow.com/planning. So I really think it's like assessing what you're doing and just being ruthless about cutting out the shit that isn't helping you right now today. Like you just have to be ruthless. You have to be so ruthless. I always like that's part of the Build a Profitable blog, my free course, Build a Profitable blog, that's on femtrepreneur.co. That like I think like close to like 10,000 people have gone through that free course, which is crazy. I talk about like becoming a chisel and being ruthless about cutting away. Just like your job is to be the chisel and just cut away everything that isn't helping you. Like if you spend like a week on something and it's not giving you an immediate return, stop doing it. You just have to be so focused and disciplined about that. It's very difficult and it's very worth it. And it's the only thing that's really going to help you.
I love it. Okay. So then one of the other things we want to talk about is that you should plan your time in advance. You could do this at a weekly level. You could just do this the night before for the next day. But whatever it looks like for you, take time to plan out your time in advance. Because the worst thing you can do if you're trying to be efficient is sit down when you're going to start working and have no idea what to work on. Maybe you're like, I'm going to create a course today. And you sit down and you like have no plan. You're like, I don't even know, how do I start? And then you spend the whole day reacting. Get an email, you react to that. Someone comments on your Facebook group, so you just react to that. So you end up not really spending your time very wisely. And I actually have a whole video on my YouTube channel where I talk about how I personally like to plan my day in advance. So if you want to check that out, you can go to meganmins.com/plan-your-day. And the link to that will be below this video or in the show notes of the podcast. So that's like my exact method, but Mariah, you plan your day in advance too, and you kind of block out your days a little bit. Is that right?
Yeah, it's definitely like the day before, I know exactly what I'm going to need to be working on when I wake up the next day. Because if I don't, I will be totally that person that's like, I'll open my computer and I'll just start looking through tabs and I'll just start clicking through 100 tabs and I'll be like, what's going on in this? Yeah, I'll be like, what's going on in this tab? What's going on in this tab? And I'll just refresh things. The worst. I read this tip once. I can't remember who it was from, that was like, before you open your computer, know exactly what you're going to do. Like, know the exact path of what you're going to do. Like, are you going to open a Word document? Are you going to open this folder? What are you going to do? And then, like, visualize it and then do it right when you open your computer. Because if you don't really know and you start looking at emails, you're just going to go down a rabbit hole. So I definitely need to, like, very strictly plan out what I need to do the day before. Otherwise, this just turns into a big blob of a day. And part of that is blocking out your day, deciding what works well for you. For me, my like power hours are in the morning. So I will work on course creation and content creation in the morning. And then I'll do like meetings and admin and like other stuff in the afternoon, because I'm kind of useless in the afternoon. But a lot of people, they're better at night. They're like night owls and they're more productive in the evening. They're super groggy in the morning. So it really depends on like blocking out your day based on your habits.
Yeah, definitely. And I think to touch on how to make sure you do plan in advance, I know for me, And what I advise people to do is I have an appointment on my calendar every day at like the end of my work day that says plan tomorrow. And yeah, some days it may not happen exactly at 4:30 p.m., but it's still a reminder that I want to do that and that it's important and that it's worth spending 10 to 30 minutes, depending on what I'm doing, to do it. And so maybe that's step one, is like put a little reminder in your calendar every day to plan the next day. It always makes a huge difference. And for those of you talking about block scheduling, I'm kind of the same way as Mariah. I like to do more high focused, high priority stuff in the morning. And then once it's after lunchtime, that's when we'll record a podcast episode or we'll do some administrative work. I manage our weekly content. So in the afternoon, I work on that stuff because it's a little bit more easygoing. So if you want to block schedule, but you have a full-time job, I hear a lot of people say, I can't block schedule. I have a full-time job. You can, you're just blocking out the time you do have. So as an example, let's say you spend 1 hour every day, Monday through Thursday. And so you work like 4 hours a week on your business in the evenings, let's just say. Then maybe like Monday and Wednesday can be your administrative, ongoing operations block. And then Tuesday and Thursday can be your course creation block. That's still like really reasonable. You'll answer all your emails on Monday and Wednesday. And then Tuesday and Thursday, you can actually work on this high priority stuff. So whatever your work schedule looks like, whether it's 1 hour here and there, every day for 7 days, all day, like whatever it is, how can you leverage that and make it the most valuable time? I don't know. Did that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just all about focusing on one project at a time. Like you're not sitting down and saying like, I'm going to spend 20 minutes on course slides and then 20 minutes writing my sales page. And then I'm going to do 20 little minutes of writing social media posts, because that really gets you distracted and confused. You just have to be like, I'm spending a 2-hour block on just my sales page or just my slides, and you can't worry about anything else. And that's part of what we talk about in the sprint planning workshop, is that the only way to get things done is to only do one thing at a time. Even though it feels like you want to have like, oh, well, maybe I can kind of chip away at this project, chip away at this project, chip away at this. I'd love to make a little bit of progress on each one. That ends up getting none of the projects actually completed. So if you just focus on one, then you can actually check it off at the end of a good working hour, instead of only getting a little bit of progress on a bunch of different projects. It's kind of like, I'm trying to think of like those, I don't know. I feel like there's some sort of graphic I can imagine where like all these little bars are like moving very slightly and they're like all moving, or it's just like if you had the same amount of effort, you're pushing like all these different rocks.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or then like if you could just push one all the way,
it'll get done and you'll see the return on it.
Yeah, you'll actually like make, and the thing is that when you get one piece of a project or one project done, no matter how small it is, you get momentum and you get like this sense of like, I can do this. Okay, check. Like I feel like when I look at my to-do list in the morning, I just want to die, and I'm just like, I'll never get this done. Like none of this will ever be done. And then if I can literally just tip the domino and just get one little tiny thing checked off, I'm like going through the to-do list, everything is getting done. It's just this tiny little bit of like confidence and momentum to keep going. So again, this is a lot of stuff that we talked about in the sprint planning workshops. If you guys want to watch the workshop, which over 10,000 people have also watched that workshop at this point, go to thefemshow.com/planning and also download the workbook that goes with it. Because if you're struggling to like block out your schedule or know what to focus on during each week that you have and in the limited time that you have, it's really going to help you plan that out. And the final sort of thought that I want to leave you guys with is remembering to create instead of consume. And so you're really going to be in this stage of your business where you shift from being in this intense research mode, right? Where you're like absorbing so much information. You're going to webinars, you're reading blog posts, you're reading articles, you're watching videos on YouTube. Like you're in this sort of like consumption mode because you want to absorb and you want to learn as much as you can about what you're about to do, which is creating a course or launching your business or building your email list, whatever it is that the stage that you're at. You shift, you have to make the shift. And I think maybe this is where like some businesses never get past this point and some of them do, and maybe that's what separates them. But you make this shift from being like, okay, I am now ready. I need to not absorb any more information. At this point, the thing I need to do, I have enough to get started. At this point, what I need to do is completely shift into creation mode. So you stop consuming and you start creating, and you essentially need to like go dark for a month or two or longer. I mean, I went dark for like 6 months when I started creating the first Femtrepreneur courses, because I was like, literally did not look at what anyone else was doing, did not consume, didn't read any blogs, I was just so busy creating my own shit that I had no time and no energy to absorb or consume other videos or other stuff. It's great because it really allows you to not be influenced by other stuff that's happening in your industry. And I think it creates a really unique, like, you're going to come to these like amazing ideas and breakthroughs and aha moments on your own, which is really important. But the biggest thing is just like stop reading blogs, stop scrolling through social media, stop worrying about what other people are doing, stop thinking that you need just a little bit more info to get going. Like, just take what you know what you need to do. I think the truth is, like, a lot of times we know what we need to do. We just need to like shut down Facebook and actually fucking do it.
Yeah. Well, I think something for me too, this is like a general, I love everything you're saying. To me, it's almost like a general productivity tip, even if you're not in a season of creating. If you're finding yourself not getting anything done, like, stop consuming. For me, like, you would have died if you had seen how much time I used to spend reading blog posts.
Oh my God,
there's a service called Feedly, which you can like drop in all your favorite blogs and you can look at it every day, and it'll show you like all the new blog posts. You can read them. I swear I spent like half a day, like just like,
and I was like, oh, this is business. I used to literally be like, this is business. Like, no wonder I wasn't making any money.
I know. Well,
I'd be like, oh, this is productive.
Yeah, I'm learning. And then even when I had my full-time job, of course, I was like procrastinating at work. And so I wanted to just like read blog posts. But it was definitely affecting me. I think what you were talking about, like having breakthroughs, when you aren't consuming content, your mind is thinking a little bit freer. Like you're having independent thoughts. That doesn't mean you're going to like come up with a new thought no one's ever had before just because you're not consuming, but it's going to be coming from you, and you're going to have your own unique ahas about something that maybe no one else has ever shared before. So
I also
go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, to me, this also kind of loops into that whole conversation about stop watching Netflix. Like, we're talking a little bit more about like the business consumption that happens with the excuse of it being for business. But to me, it's a blanket statement also of like, what can you, for 2 weeks, for 1 month, for 2 months, what can you just like temporarily stop doing? I watch The Bachelor. It takes 2 hours out of every Monday, and it's such a joke. But I'm at a point in my business where it's okay, because those hours I'm relaxing anyways. But if I was starting to create a course, you can bet those 2 hours.
First thing to go.
That Bachelor show, like, it's fun and all, but it brings me no real value. So what are you consuming that doesn't really bring you that much value or distracts you? I don't know. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that the times when I am like going dark and completely stopping any and all consumption of content is when I truly is the only time when I feel clear about my priorities. So in terms of the things of like, oh, you think that you need to be on Pinterest, you think that you need to be focusing on creating a new Facebook group, you think that you need to, write an ebook, or that you need to create this thing. I mean, there's so many things that you could and should do. And I feel like when I'm reading this even happens to me now. I read this case study the other day about like this like Amazon affiliate like setup, and it was like, and in my mind, because I was reading that article and it was like saying how successful this person had been with like an Amazon affiliate store or blog or whatever, I was like, oh, like drop everything. We need to set up an Amazon affiliate, like new business. Like, oh, stop everything. Let's start this new business. Like, it felt like a priority while I was reading it that I needed, or like I'm reading a case study about someone using viral giveaways or whatever. And in that moment of reading that, I'm like so convinced that like we need to stop everything and do that. When if I'm not consuming all that external like pressure of like, you need to be doing this, you have to do this, or like they're all good ideas, like of course they all work and they're all great ideas and I wish I could do all of them, but when I stop consuming is when everything starts like falling into place in my brain of like, clearly this is my priority. Clearly this is what's best for my business. Clearly this is the highest leverage thing I can do. This is the lowest hanging fruit. Like, it only starts making sense when I have a longer period of time of not consuming. Whereas if I'm constantly absorbing like other people's advice and strategies and case studies, I'm like overwhelmed with like, I need to be doing all of these things. Yes, that's my thought.
I love it. And I think just to like recap and wrap up a little bit, to me, this goes back to the very first thing you said when we started talking about this, is that ultimately you make the time. You make a sacrifice, you temporarily change what you're doing, you make a decision and you commit to it, and you be as disciplined as you can, and you stay as focused as you can. That doesn't mean you're going to be perfect. Like we said, it's not easy. It won't be flawless. That's okay. You know, be a little nicer to yourself about it. But at the same time, you just got to do it. Like, if you want this to happen and you feel like you don't have a lot of time, something's got to go. So figure out what that means for you and just do it. The end.
Do it. Drop the mic.
Yeah, we're done. But anyway, I hope this was helpful to everyone, whether you're a full-time job, whether you have a full-time job, or if you're a full-time entrepreneur. I think this is stuff Mariah and I love talking about. So be sure to let us know if you enjoyed hearing us talk about time management. We're going to be talking for the rest of February a little bit more on time management and productivity, things like that. So we're so excited for you to hear the rest of these episodes. But for now, go to thefemshow.com/27 to get the show notes for this episode and to find the links to everything we mentioned, including how to get that sprint planning workshop and workbook, which you can go to thefemshow.com/planning for that. And if you want to discuss this episode with us and our amazing community of ambitious entrepreneurs, make sure you join our free Facebook group at thefemshow.com/community.
And if you like this episode, please subscribe to the Femtrepreneur Show on iTunes and leave a rating and a review. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment with your thoughts, because we want to know what you think about our episodes. Yes. And remember to hit the like button and subscribe. It really means a lot to us. Don't forget to go to thefemshow.com. You guys can submit your own questions. We give you a shout out on the show, and we'll answer it here live together. So yeah, submit your questions. We'll talk to you guys next time.